In 2013, I took a terrifying leap of faith. I abandoned my corporate career and decided to dedicate myself to studying the practice of leadership. Over the next 3 years, I completed the leadership coaching program at Georgetown University, coached a variety of leaders in a wide variety of roles in organizations, and studied everything I could get my hands on about leadership. I was immersed in the science of leadership, science that, as a lifelong leader, I had no idea even existed. As I learned more, I began to feel like a brain surgeon who, at the end of his career, looks back and realizes he's only had 3 weeks of formal education and 3 decades of on-the-job training while mucking around in people's lives and heads. As I got further into this quest, I began to wonder what kind of leader I was. Was I good or was I bad? What were my strengths and what were my weaknesses? And not in some subjective, anecdotal sense like we tend to hear in those annual performance reviews. I wanted to know in an objective, statistically validated way what impact I had had on the people around me and the businesses that I'd been involved with. It was about this time that I was reunited with someone from my past, a guy named J.P. Kelly, a Navy pilot who I'd flown with 25 years before. We'd been part of a carrier-based flight crew that specialized in hunting Soviet submarines in the North Arabian Sea at the height of the Cold War. Intense. After our tour together, years spent in that unforgiving environment focused on teamwork and on crisp decision-making, we went our separate ways. When we got back together, we immediately noticed the superficial differences. I'd gotten out of the Navy after 8 years and pursued a career in business. JP had stayed in for 26, including 3 command tours, which is very rare. But as we talked more, we moved beyond the differences and noticed the similarities, especially in the challenges that we faced. Those challenges were things like outlining a vision for the organization, getting the team on board, picking our way through infighting and budget cuts and operational challenges and morale problems. All the human stuff was all the same. We noticed more similarities in the approaches that we had taken and the results that we had produced. We eventually came to realize that in the way we had lived our lives, we'd effectively completed a double-blind, 30-year-long study of leadership behaviors. Since our backgrounds were so similar, we had unknowingly canceled out a broad range of socioeconomic and environmental variables. We both grew up in small towns in the Midwest. We both pursued liberal arts educations from large state universities, and we both volunteered for the Navy flight program, eventually ending up in the same type of airplane, in the same squadron, and finally in the same crew. In contrast, since our subsequent workplaces were so different, we had tested those methods in dramatically dissimilar environments. JP in carrier aviation and me in corporate America. We had to find a way to quantify this. I was not willing to settle for what we usually settle for at this point, which is another beer and another sea story and this assumption that leadership is this unquantifiable, undefinable thing that you know it when you see it and all of that stuff. So I wanted more. I wanted data. And we finally had a way to get it. Because as part of my leadership quest, I'd been certified in something called the Leadership Circle Profile. It's a leadership assessment tool that assesses leaders across 29 different dimensions and boils it all down to a single number, a leadership quotient, an LQ, just like your intelligence quotient or IQ. To make a long story short, we had the tool, we could be the lab rats and we could run the experiment. One gigantic conclusion stands out, and it's nothing less than the definition of leadership. It's so profound that I wrote a book about it. That conclusion is that leadership is owning 3 things in an organization. It's owning vision, engagement, and execution. Vision is the ability to imagine, define, and communicate a view of a future worth caring about. Engagement is helping each person to understand their role in making that vision real. And execution, well, execution is unleashing the independent thought and individual action of every member of the team in pursuit of that common vision. If you tackle those 3 things, vision, engagement, and execution, in that order, the research and our experience shows that your organization will grow faster, your team and your customers will be happier and more productive, and you will become a much more effective leader.